Hi guys, welcome to today's webinar. So for today's webinar, you have myself and Azim
Hi there.
um, hosting the webinar for you. Me and Azim are part of victim service, pre-trial and outreach service. And what we do is help you get a bit more familiar with the court process before you go to court. And part of that includes arranging visits and giving you guys a bit more information on what you should know before you go to court. Just a little about what we do here in victim support. We are an independent charity in England and Wales, and we provide free and confidential support to victims and witnesses of crime. We do work with other agencies, especially part of the criminal justice system. So we do work with the police, the courts, to make sure that the right relevant support is being provided. For today's webinar, me and Azim will be going through different parts of the court process for you guys to gain an understanding of what to expect and get a bit more familiarity with the court. So, like displayed on the presentation, we will be covering the courts, arriving at court, security, and going through the witness service team, who will be the support providers on the day. And then Azim will take over the last few slides and go over the special measures, explain to you who's who in the courtroom, and also give you guys an overview of the courtroom in general, going through the court process and a bit about the questioning process as well. So just to start off with, to give you guys an idea, there are three main types of courts in England. The first one is a magistrates court that we're going to be talking about. And a magistrates court normally handles cases known as summary offences. And some of these cases can include motoring offences, criminal damage, assault. It can also deal with some other serious offences, such as burglary and drug offences. And these offences are known as either way offences and can be heard either in a magistrate's court or passed on to a Crown Court. The second court that we're going to be talking about is a Crown Court. So a Crown Court is slightly different to a magistrate's court. In a magistrate's court, there's no jury present, but in a Crown Court, there is a jury. And Adam will touch more on this later on. But a jury consists of 12 members, and they are the ones who then decide if the defendant is guilty or not and declare the verdict. And a Crown Court also will have a judge who then decides the sentence that the defendant will get if the defendant is found guilty. And just so you guys gain an understanding, some of the cases that can be heard in a Crown Court can include murder, rape, sexual violence, robbery. But Crown Court cases can also include appeals against a magistrate's court conviction or sentence. Um, and also cases that have been passed from a magistrate's court for trial or sentencing can then go on to be heard in a Crown Court as well. The final court that we're going to be talking about is a youth court. And a youth court is a special type of magistrate's court. And this court is for people who are aged between 10 and 17. They normally will have three or two magistrates or a district judge. And again, there won't be a jury present in a youth court as well. And youth courts are slightly less formal than an adult court would be. For instance, when you're in a youth court, they might address you by your first name and not your last name like they might do in an adult court. And also, there's no public gallery allowed, especially if the defendant is under 18 as well, unless they get permission to sit in the public gallery. And some of the cases that can be heard in a youth court include burglary, theft, antisocial behavior, drug offences, assault. But for some of the more serious crimes like murder or rape, those cases can start in a youth court, but they will then be passed to a Crown Court. So we're going to move on to what happens on the day that you go to court to give your evidence. We do understand it's a daunting time and it can be quite stressful if it's your first time going to court. So there will be numerous other agencies in contact with you before you are referred to us. And your witness care officer or your officer in charge of the case will let you know what date and time you need to be at court for. So once you get to court, you will be met by the security there and they will perform the security checks on you. So if you have a bag, they'll check your bag. If you've got any liquids like water or juice, they'll ask you to open it and take a sip of it. And if you've got anything in a glass bottle like a perfume, that will be taken away from you, but you can collect it before you leave the court. They will give you a receipt with your name and the item on there, so just remember to collect it before you leave the court. And once your security checks are done, you will then be either taken to the witness service area by security, or they will call down a member of the witness service team who will come and collect you from the security area and take you to the witness service waiting room. And once you are at the witness service area, the witness service team will be there on the day to answer any questions you may have, provide any extra support if you need to. They can also help you fill out an expenses form. So this is for you to claim back any costs for traveling. Let's say you use public transport and you hopped on the train and you want to claim your money back for that. You can claim it back through the CPS. So that's on there, and also how to claim back money for loss of earnings. So have a look to see if there's anything that you want to fill out and claim. And you can either fill it out there with their help, or you can take the form home, fill it out in your own comfort, and then send it back whenever you're ready. They do also normally have a free post envelope, but they might also have a digital form where you would have to scan a QR code and it would open on your phone. But once you are in the witness service waiting area, you don't need to worry about which courtroom you need to go to or where the toilets are, etc. The toilets will be in the witness service waiting area alongside a kitchenette. And in terms of the courtroom, you're not expected to wander off and find the courtroom by yourself. When it's your turn to give your evidence, you'll be collected from the witness service area into the courtroom. So just to touch on delays in the courtroom, there can be some delays when you do go on the day. Trials can be delayed for a numerous amount of reasons. So if you want, you are allowed to bring food, drinks, snacks, even your phone, a book, a laptop, anything to just keep yourself occupied whilst you're waiting there because you don't know how long you're going to be waiting for. And also because the courts are quite big and they do run multiple trials throughout the day, there might be other witnesses in the same area as you. So it's very important that you don't discuss your statement or any case details with anyone before you give your evidence. And this can also include your supporters that are coming with you. So if you're coming with friends or family, it's still very important that you don't discuss your statement or evidence with anyone, as this will put risk to the trial. I'm going to hand it over to Adam now, who's going to talk you guys through what happens when the prosecution barrister comes to meet you.
Hello there. So yeah, whilst you're in that witness waiting area, someone from the Crown Prosecution Service will come along and introduce your barrister to you. So your barrister will answer any questions that you have. If you do have any questions, I would recommend writing them down so that you don't forget them. But importantly, they will, if you've made a handwritten statement, or sorry, if you've made a written statement, they will show you a copy of that so that you can have a look around that before you go in to attend the actual trial in the courtroom. If you gave your evidence by a video recorded interview, then the officer in charge of your case will arrange to, at your convenience, to show you that evidence in a place of your convenience as well before the trial goes ahead. So, as we're saying, you'll be able to familiarise yourself with these statements, but bear in mind you cannot make any changes to these statements. They're already made. So any questions that you ask your barrister, again, be mindful, they cannot be specific about what questions will be asked in the courtroom. Also, you won't have the luxury of sort of too much time with them, unfortunately, but you will see them 15, 20 minutes before you have to attend the courtroom itself. So for people that are attending court, it can be a daunting experience, and there are certain special measures that can be put in place if they are requested. These are things that can be explored with your witness care officer and the officer in charge of the case before you go forwards to attend the trial. So these special measures range from screens around the witness box. So these can be either like a red curtain that comes around the witness box, to the extent that you'll only be seen by the important people you need to be seen by. Or it could be a set of boards, partition boarding, that will come round. The important thing being you will not be seen or be able to see the defendant or the public gallery. There is also a thing called a live link. So this can be arranged within a separate room within the court building, or at your home as a remote link, or at a police station. And what this means is you will be seated in front of a television screen with a camera. You would view the court, but you would not see the defendant. However, the defendant would be able to see you on the TV screens in the courtroom. Again, if you have any issues around your mental health or any learning difficulties or anything like this, then an intermediary can also be brought into the courtroom with you. So they're like specialists. They can help you understand what's being said and also help you to convey what you need to say as well. So once you enter the courtroom, depending on the court, sort of crown or magistrates, as Jazz mentioned, in the magistrates' court, there will not be a judge. There will be three magistrates or one district judge, but they will not be wearing wigs or gowns or anything. They will be smartly dressed. And in the courtroom for the Crown Court, there will be a judge, and they will be wearing like their red gowns and a wig and so on. And sitting down in front of the judge will be, or the jury will be a court clerk behind a computer. They have many roles in that courtroom. They won't directly affect you because they won't be asking you any questions, but just so that you know who they are. So importantly, straight across from you where you're standing will be where the 12 members of the jury will be sitting. So there are just 12 of your peers picked from the general public to come and perform a public service. And, they will listen to the evidence from both parties, sort of the prosecution and defense, and on some direction from the judge, they will come up with a verdict at the end of the trial. So moving back a bit, on a bench, sort of just along where you're sitting, just below, closest to you will be your barrister, and they will have a team member with them. And on that same bench at the opposite end, closest to where the jury are, will be the barrister for the defendant. So again, behind them, there are other benches. There may be police officers sitting at those benches or other members of the legal teams, but that doesn't directly affect you either. So importantly, at the back of the courtroom, at the opposite end of where the judge is sitting, is where the glass-fronted dock will be, where the defendant will be seated, along with a court officer known as the dock officer. And then once you've been brought into the courtroom, the court usher that does that will be seated quite near to where you're standing. So in courts as well, down by where the defendant will be in the dock, there is spaces for a public gallery that anyone can sit in. Now, the number of seats available varies from court to court. Some have 5 or 6 seats, some have up to about 12 seats. And anyone can sit in these, but it is usually sort of friends and family of people attending the courtroom. So once you've entered the witness box, you'll be allowed to get settled before anyone starts asking you questions. And the first thing that will happen is you will need to be sworn in. And what that means is the court usher that brings you into the courtroom will ask you if you have a religion at all or not. And depending on your answer, they'll either have a religious text of your choice and a corresponding card to read from, or it will be an affirmation card that just says that you sort of do solemnly and sincerely swear that the evidence you give today shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So if you have any reading difficulties or anything, the court usher can say a line to you and you repeat it back out loud. So once that's taken place, the proceedings can start properly, and they will start with your barrister, who will stand up and ask you questions based on that statement that you originally made. So once they've finished asking you their questions, they will be seated and the barrister for the defendant will stand up to take their place. So they will introduce themselves, why they're there, and obviously they're there to cross-examine you. They will be asking you questions on behalf of their client, the defendant, who has pled not guilty, which is why you're all in court at that time. So obviously they're going to have a different version of events to yours. So you can be asked some tough questions, probably by this defense barrister. You're not going to like the questions they ask, but bear in mind, don't take it personally. They are just doing their job and they've got egos like everyone else. They want to be seen to be good at their job. So when they're asking you questions, they're trained to ask questions in a certain way as well. So just to give an example, they could step up and just say, so I have some questions for you today. That's okay. And my first question is, you say in the morning in question that the defendant had Weetabix for breakfast. Is that correct? and you'll give your answer. Then you may say thank you. And my next question is that not in fact a lie? And in fact, the defendant didn't have any breakfast at all that morning. Now, you will stand by your guns as to why you're there and what you've said initially. And it would be foolish of them to keep pursuing that particular line of questioning, because your barrister would step in to object, sort of stating that these are questions being asked and answered by the witness. Indeed, the judge may even step in first to stress this and to move proceedings along. But, they won't be screaming and shouting in your face or anything like that. Okay. So, the important thing is to be clear about what you say happened. This is your day in court. So, importantly, if when you're being asked questions, there is anything that you feel you don't remember, don't feel pressured that you have to say something. The best course of action is just to say, I'm sorry, I don't recall that. That's absolutely fine to do that. Again, when you're being asked questions, there may be some questions with a lot of legal jargon thrown in. If you're not quite 100% sure of what you're being asked, you have every right to ask them to rephrase those questions. Okay, so the whole thing, this is your day in court. We're all only human. It's not a memory test. Just say what you know, state it clearly. That should be enough. So also bear in mind when you are giving evidence, it may be going on for a while. You may feel that you need a rest. You have every right to ask if you can have a recess outside of court, and the court usher can come and take you outside of the courtroom, 5-10 minutes just to compose yourself and come back. Again, if you need any tissues or a glass of water or anything, you have every right to ask for that as well. So the judges or the magistrate, depending on the courtroom, they're there to ensure that the trial is run sort of fairly in accordance with British law. And they may have one or two questions to ask you as well, but that would be more just to clarify certain points. If at any point when you're being questioned, you're not sure why you're being asked a particular question or you don't think it's fair, you have every right to politely ask the judge if you have to answer that question. If the answer is yes, then you most definitely do need to answer that question. So once the barrister for the defendant has finished asking you questions, your barrister will then get to step up and ask you any questions to counter any of the answers that came out of the defence's questioning. So, they'll clear up some matters, but it might even be just needing to confirm something or reaffirm something. So they may say, just to confirm, the defendant did have Weetabix for breakfast that morning. Is that correct? And you can say yes. So once they finish asking you their questions, they will say, I have no more questions for this witness, Your Honour. Does Your Honour have any questions for the witness? So again, the judge may just have some points of clarification and clearing up around whether it's Weetabix or cornflakes or whatever. But after that point, you will be given a leave to leave the courtroom. And what that means, you will be escorted out the courtroom by the court usher. Now, you can go back and sit in the public gallery if you so wish, but please bear in consideration, if you had special measures, like a screen while you were giving evidence, those special measures will not be in place in the public gallery. So once the trial is concluded, your witness care officer or the officer in charge of your case will update you on what the verdict was in that trial. And the Crown Prosecution Service will also send you a formal letter through the post. So I hope that was helpful, that information. And if you do need any other support or information, please do visit the Victim Support website at www.londonvws.org.uk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for listening, everybody.